Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo, wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima, wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima, angalia wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima, angalia wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima, angalia wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima, angalia wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima, angalia wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima, angalia wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika, wastahili heshima, angalia wa mama Waafrika, wahitaji upendo wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima, wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima. Angalia wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima, wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima. Angalia wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima, wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima. Angalia wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima, wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima. Angalia wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima, wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima. Angalia wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima, wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima. Angalia wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima, wa mama Waafrika wahitaji upendo, wa mama Waafrika wastahili heshima. angalia. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika mama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia. Wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, angalia. Wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, angalia. Wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, angalia. Wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, angalia. Wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, angalia. Wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, angalia. Wamama wafirika wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Angalia, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima. Wamama wafurika, wahitaji upendo. Wamama wafurika, wastahili heshima, angalia sura yake, inahuzunisha, angalia macho yake, yanahuzunisha, angalia sura yake, inahuzunisha, angalia macho yake, yanahuzunisha, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia sura yake, inahuzunisha, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, wamama wafirika, wahitaji upendo, wamama wafirika, wastahili heshima, angalia.
Good morning and welcome to the inaugural Women Economic Forum Kenya 2021. It's such a pleasure to have you all with us. I hear we've got thousands of people who are joining us online. Whether you're joining us from here in Kenya or from wherever you are in the world, you are welcome. This is the inaugural Women Economic Forum 2021, and the agenda and the theme for this year is reshaping the Kenyan economy through harnessing women's potential. We have an incredible 2 days lined up, amazing speakers from across Kenya, from government, private sector, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and so much more. I am so excited, and I hope you are too. My name is Terry-Ann Chabet. I will be the host and moderator for this opening session, and I'm really looking forward to having you be part of the conversation as well. I will be sharing the hashtags and the social media platforms that you can engage us with, and we will be so happy to read from you. So first things first, we will have the national anthem before we kick off.
O God of all creation, Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize malengo yetu, jambo letu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu
Well, that's the Kenya National Anthem and the East African Anthem. And we'd like to give thanks to God as well and to give us blessings for the next 2 days. So let's bow our heads and pray. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for this conference that has been put together by great minds who have come together to just find out and challenge us all to think about the role of women in our economy. We want to thank you for all the guests who have confirmed to come. We want to thank you for the government of Kenya. We want to thank you for all the panelists. We also want to thank you for our guests and viewers who are joining us from all over the world for our session today and tomorrow. We give this conference into your hands and we pray that you will be with us through it all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Welcome to the inaugural Women's Economic Forum happening on the 24th and the 25th of February 2021. A premier networking and information sharing forum. The conference will be the ground zero for women's economic emancipation aimed at unlocking women's economic potential. This year's thematic focus will include agribusiness, manufacturing and value addition, financial access, technology and innovation, entrepreneurship, and tax and policy regimens. The forum, which will be held virtually, will comprise panel discussions, networking sessions, power talks, and keynote addresses from high-ranking government officials, development partners, industry leaders, financial institutions, and many more. The forum is the first in the Women and Economy series under the auspices of the Women's Voice and Leadership Program Kenya, networking and alliance building pillar powered by Crown Trust, supported by Care Kenya and Global Affairs Canada in partnership with the New Revenue Solutions Africa and Digital Oasis. Don't miss out. Register now by visiting www.womeneconomicforumkenya.com. The Women's Economic Forum 2021, reshaping Kenya's economy and harnessing women's economic potential.
Now, of course, with women making up half of Kenya's population, their subpar representation in the national economic sphere is less than acceptable. Furthermore, women own and run more than 50% of all the informal businesses in Kenya, making them invaluable to our Kenyan economy. Therefore, this conference and this forum for the next 2 days will really be looking into the different aspects where women contribute to this economy, whether it is from the leadership perspective, entrepreneurship, MSMEs, policy making, and so much more. I'd like to now welcome Miriam Cherogon, who will be taking us through the first part of our session this morning. Miriam is the chairperson of Crown Trust. Miriam has been the chairperson of Crown Trust from January 2019. She is an agricultural economist by training. Professionally, she's an independent consultant in development finance, financial inclusion, and knowledge management. She has over 20 years of local, regional, and international experience. She was the African Regional Manager for the Initiative for Smallholder Finance, a multi-donor initiative by Global Development Incubator, a team leader for IFED, funded several grant projects in Eastern and Southern Africa. Miriam has undertaken various assignments for Africa Business Group, ACDI VOCA in Resilience Learning Activity, AGRA, European Investment Bank, FAO, IFED, KfW, Kenya Investment Mechanism by Palladium Group, NERAS, and Millennium Challenge Corporation. She holds a BSc and MSc in Agricultural Economics from the University of Manitoba in Canada. Over to you, Miriam.
Cabinet Secretary, Public Service and Gender, Professor Margaret Kobia, represented here by the Cabinet Administrative Secretary, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, the Canadian High Commissioner to Kenya, Her Excellency Lisa Stadelberg, the Country Director for Care Kenya, Ms. Philippa Crossland Taylor. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Miriam Cherogon. I'm the chairperson for Crown Trust. distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite you to this first inaugural Women Economic Forum entitled Reshaping the Kenya's Economy with Women Participation. Our economy has emerged from the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and pandemics can also present opportunities for us to chart a way forward. It is now looking at these challenges and bringing women together to chart the way forward after this pandemic. And at Crown Trust, we believe that research is very key in our interventions as well as advocacy work. There are plenty of opportunities to engage women in terms of economic activities. There is need to formalize women's businesses for them to really engage in meaningful economic activities. And these businesses will include things like financing for them to expand the growth and growth of their businesses. The conversation is happening at a very strategic time when Africa is launching the Africa Free Trade Area, which is giving an opportunity for cross-Africa trade. And this one is one of the opportunities that we can benefit from as women, particularly in Kenya. And this is going to take some time to get into shape, but it doesn't stop us from getting prepared to gain from such opportunities to expand our businesses. The government of Kenya is working on a post-COVID-19 economic strategy, and we in Crown Trust want to co-create with the government the participation of women in contributing to this strategy. And this conference is one of the ways that we are going to contribute to the women economic growth in this country and ensure that their livelihoods contribute to the growth of the GDP of this country. In the event that we are hosting is made possible by Global Affairs Canada as well as Care Kenya International. Care Kenya has supported the Women Voice Leadership Program, which is a multi-year program that is implemented by Crown Trust. And the Women Voices Leadership Program is to contribute to the gender equality and also the pushing space for human rights in Kenya by improving the governance, management, programming, and sustainability of local women rights organizations, and enhancing their ability to deliver quality services and increasing effectiveness of Kenya women rights programs. Women economic inclusion is an integral part of this program. Kenya women comprise half of the population in Kenya, and also have a very big contribution towards the economy. But there are issues that have made it very impossible for them to contribute, and so it is our concerted effort to be able to address these challenges so that women can realize their potential. The two-day conference on reshaping Kenya's potential through harnessing women economic potential offers us an opportunity to address the gender issues and make recommendations for considerations that will address bottlenecks and hamper women's full economic participation. Through the National Steering Committee network, we are able to bring together across this country women to sit at the table and discuss the issues that are pertinent to them. My own experience in Kenya as an agricultural economist across Africa and globally shows that women are struggling the world over, but also they have opportunities that they can utilize to get out of the situations that they are in. It is our concerted effort that can bring them together and benefit from the efforts that we do in development, as well as programming work, such as the one that is being run by Crown Trust. Today's operating environment is becoming even more challenging for women because of it is moving into a technology space and a knowledge space. And so this presents women additional challenges in addition to the existing challenges that they face. The thematic area of this conference is giving us an opportunity to suggest transformative ways that women can engage in the strategic development of this country. And the thematic areas that we will be discussing during this conference will help us to come up with recommendations for the women. In conclusion, we need to ensure that women are aware of their role in the economic space and how they are contributing to the policies and the drivers that make their businesses more resilient and also to support economic growth. That is what Crown Trust commits to. And the forum next year, we will look back and see what gains we will have made during a year of implementation of these strategies. We are in this for the long haul, and we commit ourselves as an organization to ensure that everybody understands that what is good for women is good for everyone. My experience, ladies and gentlemen, has taken me across this country, across the continent, and across the globe, addressing issues of women empowerment. My focus is on agricultural financing and focusing on empowering women that are involved in agriculture. These women, normally in most countries, make up 70% of the population. And the interventions that we have provided for them include financing, market access, as well as also building bankable business plans for them. These business plans are very important in terms of linking them to the financial sector and also making them included in the financial sector. Agriculture plays a very big role in most African countries and in our country here in particular. And women make the greatest percentage of workers on the land. So as we think about empowering women, we must empower the rural woman. We must find ways to empower them. And there are various strategies that we can use. We need to look at access to finance, for example. And access to finance does not mean just going to banks or going to financial institutions. It could be also organizing them in small groups that they can learn how to save, how to borrow among themselves. This builds the strategies for them to be able to engage with the financial sector. And there's also a link between agriculture and health. And I have been working passionately on ensuring that we have nutritious food for our children. And one of the studies that is done annually by the University of Nairobi shows that there's very high toxicity levels in the food that is produced in most countries. And so this is another issue that we must address as women. We must be able to produce food that is nutritious for the people, and also whether we are marketing it or for our households. We know that a lot of chemicals are put on products that go to the market, but we want to change the narrative that food that goes to the market goes to feed Kenyans, and so it is important that we produce this food sustainably. Now, in terms of agribusiness, we need to engage the women in making their businesses more sustainable and resilient, and in this we want to look at issues around building those businesses as real businesses. A lot of the agriculture that we do is hobby farming, but we want to move these women to linking them to global supply chains. There's a lot of activities that women can be engaged in. For example, growing spices is a very big lucrative business now. growing herbs and spices. This is activities that they can do in a small land holding and can produce a lot of and can bring a lot of income to the women. But these women also must be organized in a way that they can engage the market. So it is important that we form women into viable groups, and these groups can be used to now transact, whether it is markets, aggregating their produce, and also building their capacities to be able to engage the markets in terms of getting the right prices, and also ensuring that they are paid on time. The issue of health and agriculture is very twinly related, and with the COVID-19 we've seen that there is need for effort in this direction, because the amount that Kenya government is spending treating people can be reduced if we can improve the agriculture of this country. And that is reducing toxicity levels of the chemicals that we use. We use user-friendly chemicals. We also reduce commercial fertilizer and other things that really spoil the soil. We need to engage professionals, the carries of the Kenya Agricultural Research Centers, to be able to really tell us which is the best chemicals that farmers can use. Again, we need to strengthen the research units as well as the extension service in this country. We know that the extension service is not working, but we need to find ways that we can still provide information to the women, and good information that they can use in terms of production, in terms of the way they also take their food to the market. It is important that food is packaged well, because there's very high losses that we incur. In fact, if we can, the food loss that is incurred in the agriculture space is close to 40% of what is produced. So if we can reduce the food losses, we can increase productivity in this country by 40%. It is now my pleasure to declare this Women Economic Forum officially open. And let me take this opportunity to introduce our next speaker, the Country Director for Care Kenya, Ms. Philippa Crossland.
Thank you, Miriam. Miriam Chergonyi is the chairperson of Crown Trust. And to the next speaker, Philip Crossland Taylor. Philippa has been the country director for Care Kenya since March 2019. She has been working in the aid industry for nearly 30 years, having started as a VSO in Kenya in 1991. She has mainly worked in East and Southern Africa, initially as a technical specialist in economic development and livelihoods. She's a British citizen and has a degree in business studies and 2 masters, the first in development studies and the second in sustainability and responsibility. She has been based in Kenya most constantly since 2006, when she moved here to become the CD for Oxfam, and remained here based as she moved into a regional role supervising CDs in the Horn, East and Central Africa region. She first joined Care in 1998 in Mozambique, when she headed up a livelihood program. From there she moved on to Uganda and then to Sri Lanka. She returned to Care to undertake filler roles, initially supporting the Syrian program from Lebanon, then to Zambia, before taking up the substantive role she now has the honor to hold in Kenya.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge the Canadian High Commissioner, the high-ranking government officials, Women's Voice and Leadership development partners, industry leaders and financial institutions that have worked so hard towards making this event come to fruition today. I really warmly welcome all of you to the inaugural Women's Economic Forum, which is opportunely themed Reshaping Kenyan Economy through Harnessing Women's Potential. Care International is honoured to be co-hosting this event alongside Global Affairs Canada, the Government of Kenya, Crown Trust, Digital Oasis, EcoBank, New Revenue Solutions, Africa, and the Women's Economic Empowerment Hub from the University of Nairobi. In the words of Malala Yousafzai, which I can never say, a female feminist activist and the youngest Nobel Prize laureate from Pakistan. I raise up my voice not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. We cannot succeed when half of us are held back. Malala's words touch on what makes women's economic empowerment and financial inclusion critical for gender equity, and underscores the fact that economic empowerment of women is a cornerstone of sustainable development goals. With this in mind, I'd like to talk about 4 things today. The first is the fact that we need to have a bird's eye view of the female economic exclusion in Kenya today. The second is how COVID-19, the pandemic that we're all in, is deepening systematic and systemic gender inequalities. The third, and something that's close to my heart, is CARE's commitment to gender equity. It is the heart of what we believe in CARE. It's what's really important to all of us, and it's what drives much of our work. And the fourth one is what Kenya can do to boost women's economic empowerment in actually happening in Kenya. Today, more than ever, women in Kenya are engineers, they're doctors, they're scientists, they're industrialists, CEOs of organisations. Many of you are here today in a high role, and they hold many jobs that would have been absolutely inconceivable 50 years ago. Furthermore, women have vast and positive impacts on the economy, in business, in agriculture, industry, through as a domestic worker, but also through their unpaid work. Despite some progress, obstacles to women's full and equal participation, including the lack of an enabling environment, persist. When we create an enabling environment for women to achieve their economic potential and contribute actively to the national economy, it's not only empowering, but also productive. Gender inequality comes at a significant economic cost as it hinders productivity and Kenya's economic growth. CARE International in Kenya takes the inclusion of women in the national economy very seriously and has been working to advance the economic integration of women since 1968. Unfortunately, it's increasingly clear that COVID-19 is deepening gender gaps, reversing progress towards economic justice and more equitable healthcare access, and diminishing women's participation in public spaces. Leaders at all levels, from the community to global decision makers, overlook women and their needs. The data and assumption these leaders use to inform decisions rarely include women's perspective and experiences. As a result, leaders design COVID-19 responses that do not meet women's needs. CARE has warned from the beginning of this pandemic that the pandemic would have a disproportionate impact on women and girls. Unfortunately, foresight is only as good as the action it enables. The efficacy of CARE's and other COVID-19 responses depends on understanding how marginalised people are affected in all the diversity across contexts and over time. All these perspectives are highlighted and will be discussed in Women's Voice and Leadership's project research report on women and the economy in Kenya that is being launched here at this conference. The other report that is being launched is a policy document by Crawn, which is a brief on women in the economy that shows that the contributions, constraints and distinct policy options support continued economic inclusion and recovery for women is available. The Women's Voice and Leadership Programme, Kenya, is being implemented over a 5-year period that started in February 2019. It's implemented by CARE and its partners, which are Crawn Trust, Uriah Trust, CREW and Urgent Action Fund Africa. The initiative, which we're all extremely proud of and funded by GAC, Global Affairs Canada, will see over 120 national and subnational women's rights organisations that seek to empower women and girls become recipients of rapid response grants as well as multi-year funding. The objectives of this project directly feed into Global Affairs Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy and the overall Women's Voice and Leadership Programme. Despite the fact that women represent over 51% of the Kenya population, their representation in post-primary education, waged employment, enterprise ownership, property ownership and decision-making process is limited. Cognizant of these grim realities that are enabled by patriarchal norms, culture and legislative policy, restriction that continue to deny women access to economic opportunities in Kenya, achieving gender equality is very much at the heart of Women's Voice and Leadership Programme agenda. Gender equality and non-discrimination are anchored in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and relevant laws and policies have been developed to ensure their achievement. One of the most important ways to promote peace and stability is to provide economic opportunities to empower women. Through economic partnerships between public and private sector that enable women to be part of a nation's growing economy, research has shown that a ripple effect against poverty that will extend across family societies will happen if women are involved. Another pivotal component is empowering women in developing countries is, of course, education. Through the provision of confidence, knowledge and skills, women can rebuild impoverished communities. Hence, providing women and girls with more educational opportunities contributes to the reduction in fertility rates and increases in labour force participation rates. Many businesses are now adopting gender equality in their workplace and support women's career development. Businesses are now providing capacity building and training to young women to equip them with skills to participate in the workforce and create their own businesses. But the private sector must move further and faster to ensure that the training programs address the deeper psychological and social constraints facing women and the impact of technology. Technology, of course, is a critical variable in closing the gender gap and empowering women. Educating girls in STEM and IT will help women and girls pursue opportunities in these fields. E-commerce, which is particularly noticeable through the pandemic, has become a powerful engine for SME growth, and this is having a critical impact on women's own businesses, which are more likely to be micro or small in size and informal in nature. Empowering more women to work will result in a better growth for Kenya. It is my hope that this forum over the next 2 days will kickstart a conversation among all the development partners and stakeholders that will ultimately reshape the potential of the role women play in building the Kenyan economy. At this juncture, please join me in welcoming the Kenya High Commissioner to Kenya, Madam Lisa Stadelbauer, to make her welcoming remarks in the Women Economic Forum. It's a really great pleasure, and I wish I was seeing you in person, Lisa. It seems an awfully long time since we've seen each other, but thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Philippa. Our next speaker is Ms. Lisa Stadelbauer, the High Commissioner for Canada to Kenya. Ms. Lisa Stadelbauer is studied in the University of Western Ontario, completed in 1988. She joined External Affairs and International Trade Canada in 1990. Her first assignment abroad was in 1992 to Tel Aviv, and she later served in Hanoi as Chancellor and then in Oslo as Chancellor and Consul. From 2011 to 2015, she served as ambassador to Zimbabwe and Angola and High Commissioner in Botswana. In Ottawa, she served in a number of functions, including Director of the Eastern and Southern Africa Division, Deputy to Canada's Africa Personnel Representative to the G8, and from 2015 to 2017, Director General of the Pan-Africa Bureau. Her most recent assignment was in the Foreign and Defense Policy Secretariat in the Privy Council Office. Ms. Stadelbauer was appointed Canada's High Commissioner to Kenya in October 2018 and presented her credentials to President Uhuru Kenyatta on Wednesday, December 5th, 2018.
Your Excellency, Professor Margaret Copia, Cabinet Secretary for the Public Service and Gender Affairs. Your Excellency, Ms. Betty Mina, Cabinet Secretary for Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development. distinguished guests and participants, all protocols observed. It's a pleasure to be able to participate in this timely discussion among many inspiring and powerful women and allies who are working on women's economic inclusion and women and girls' rights. Canada firmly believes that in order to fully achieve sustainable development, gender inequality and the economic empowerment of women and girls must go hand in hand. Every country is presented with a unique opportunity to step up the fight for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls around the world. Canada is in solidarity with those who are committed to this goal. We believe that when women and girls are given equal opportunities to succeed, they can be powerful agents of change, driving stronger economic growth, encouraging greater peace, and improving the quality of their lives and that of their communities. Women's economic empowerment and financial inclusion is at the heart of gender equality. It has been recognized as a key to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. However, women's economic empowerment and financial inclusion remained unfinished business, with no country having achieved gender equality. Women in many parts of the world are more likely to live in poverty, and this is true in Kenya, where men enjoy better roles in formal employment and paid work, while women tend to be more involved in informal and unpaid care work. For example, in Kenya, women make up approximately 60% of the labor force in the agricultural sector and in informal employment in micro, small, and medium enterprises. Kenyan women are key contributors to the economy as producers of food, goods, and services, yet they have on average less access to resources, tools, agricultural extension services, and financial services. When Kenyan women can realize their true economic potential, this will not only improve their own sustainable livelihoods, but will also have a multiplier effect on the socio-economic fabric of society. As the world comes to terms with the ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic, and as more studies are published, it's becoming more evident that men and women have been affected differently by this health crisis. Women tend to work in sectors hardest hit by the economic downturn, like smallholder farming, the informal economy, and domestic work. They are most adversely affected by the loss of livelihoods and unemployment, leading to increased levels of poverty. Women and girls also face a higher risk of COVID infection, given the work that they do as healthcare workers and caregivers, and the unpaid care burden for women are becoming increasing because of COVID. All of these crucial issues are discussed in the research report on women and the economy in Kenya that is being launched here at this conference from our Women's Voice and Leadership Project. Given the current context, now is the right time for all Kenyans and all of us here in this forum to reflect, reimagine, and reset priorities regarding how to reposition women and the role that they can play during these uncertain times. This calls for different stakeholders to harness their dynamic capabilities and to work together to create and deliver sustainable initiatives and programs targeting women empowerment across all sectors in Kenya. Success will depend on our ability to use digital innovations and networking to drive the women's economic empowerment agenda in the current millennium. Women must have access to enabling technology, in particular new information and communications innovations, and to promote the empowerment of women. One important contribution that the Government of Canada is making towards this effort is by funding the Women's Voice and Leadership Kenya project, implemented by CARE, Crown Trust, Uriah Trust, CREA, and Urgent Action Fund Africa. In line with Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy, the project will fund over 120 women's rights organizations and networks across Kenya to advocate for women and girls' rights, including their economic empowerment and equality. The project will improve the management, programming, and sustainability of women's rights organizations to enhance their ability to deliver quality services and increase the effectiveness of Kenya's women's rights platforms. The project will ultimately enhance the status of women and girls by putting them at the center of the change that needs to happen in Kenya's economy and society. In addition to the Women's Voice and Leadership Project, we're working with partners such as Mennonite Economic Development Agency, or MEDA, to reduce gender barriers and establish efficient value chains in the agricultural, extractive, and construction sectors. Women smallholders are increasingly becoming our focus to ensure that they have the necessary skills, financial access, and networks to even the playing field for them in these sectors. Canada is also supporting a gender-responsive technical and vocational skills development program. Once again, we've decided to focus our attention on reducing gender barriers that impede women and girls from accessing the necessary skills required to participate in non-traditional sectors for women, such as the blue economy. It's so important for women's voices to be heard within discussions in the economic sphere, and I'm so excited that the WTO now has its first woman Director General. We need more women in finance on the international stage and locally. I'm sure that this forum will bring rich discussions on women's role in business, agriculture, technology, and finance. It's my hope that the outcomes of this conference will input into wider discussions in Kenya on gender equity and economic policy. I'd like to thank our partners CARE and Cron Trust for putting together this important event and for their dedicated efforts to move the needle forward on the women's movements in Kenya. I hope that your deliberations over the next 2 days will be fruitful and that these successful outcomes will pave the way for improved leadership and participation of women in the Kenyan economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. That was Lisa Stadelbauer, Canadian High Commissioner to Kenya. Well, and now it's time for us to celebrate women just a little before we get into our next session. And who better than Susanna Owio? You have heard her for many years. She's a talented singer, excellent guitarist, and now she sings to us Mama Africa.
Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia sura yake inahuzunisha. Angalia macho yake yanahuzunisha. Angalia sura yake inahuzunisha. Angalia macho yake yanahuzunisha. Wamama wa Afrika wahitaji upendo. Wamama wa Afrika wastahili heshima. Angalia sura yake inahuzunisha. Angalia macho yake yanahuzunisha. You deserve a lot of respect, Mama Africa, for the big role you play. You deserve acknowledgement, Mama Africa, in the community. You deserve a lot of respect, Mama Africa, for the big role you play. You deserve acknowledgement, Mama Africa, in the community. Oh, Mama Africa hana lolote, anashindwa atafanya nini. Ana watoto wanahitaji chakula, mavazi na pia elimu. Oh, Mama Africa, Mama Africa, angalia sura yake inahuzunisha. Angalia macho yake yanahuzunisha. Angalia sura yake inahuzunisha. Angalia macho yake yanahuzunisha. You a lot of respect, Mama Africa, for the big role you play. You deserve acknowledgement, Mama Africa, in the community.
Mama Africa by Susanna Owio. I'd like to now introduce our next speaker, Madam Daisy Amdani. She is the Executive Director of the Community Advocacy and Awareness Crown Trust, a governance, development and women's rights enthusiast and activist with several years' experience working in the field. As the Executive Director, Daisy is in charge of the overall management of the organization in the delivery of its strategic goals and objectives. In collaboration with the board, she is in charge of resource mobilization, budget control and strategic oversight of the programs. Welcome, Daisy.
Thank you, Terry Ann, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, wherever you may be joining us. The Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Gender, represented here by our good friend, Ms. Beatrice Elachi, CAS, the High Commissioner to Kenya from Canada, Her Excellency Lisa Stadelber, Care Kenya Country Director, Ms. Philippa Crossland-Taylor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure, on behalf of Crown Trust and the partners of the Women Voice and Leadership Program, to welcome you all to this inaugural Women Economic Forum 2021. I want to thank from the onset all those who have made this possible. I want to appreciate Global Affairs Canada for their support through the Women Voice and Leadership Program, making this a reality for us. This has been months, actually a year in the making. I want to appreciate Care Kenya, the coordinators who are helping us deliver this program in Kenya. And specifically, I want to thank Philippa Crossland-Taylor and her team, led by Ms. Dorothy Aseo, and the team behind the scenes at Care Kenya. I want to appreciate the team at Crown Trust, Liberty, Lillian, and the rest of the team. I want to appreciate the Ministry of Public Service and Gender, led by Professor Margaret Kobia, and who is represented here by Ms. Beatrice Elachi, the CAS, for their partnership and commitment to women's advancement in this country. And I want to thank each and every one of the amazing panelists that we have for the different panels who agreed to partner with us and to participate in this inaugural meeting. At Crown Trust, we are known for many things. For the longest time, we have worked around women's political empowerment, and many people know us for this. But when we came into the Women's Voice and Leadership Program, one of the things we said is that we must look at all angles through which women can be empowered. And the economic empowerment of women is extremely important, because economic empowerment opens up so many other avenues for not just women, for anybody. When you're economically empowered, it opens up a world of opportunities. But more specifically, through this Women and Economy series, we want to look at this particular one. We want to look at those women who are invisible in our society, those women who are the backbone of our nation, but so invisible. They operate in the micro and small enterprises. Those women that you pass, you drive past, you walk past, we hardly notice them, we hardly see them apart from when we are deliberately engaging with them. Those working in the informal sector, there are so many of them. 80% of these women are working in the informal sector. And we want to focus on how do we create economic productivity among these women by addressing the bottlenecks and the challenges that they face. And we have a wonderful team of panelists who will discuss the different areas that we will be looking at agribusiness, micro and small enterprises as potential engines of growth, looking at value chains and manufacturing, value addition, because we know that we lose so much to waste, and yet just a little information on how we can value add will make that much more difference. And so we are excited for this conference, and we look forward to a very vibrant discussion for the next 2 days. We commissioned a research in the run-up to this conference, and that research is going to be made available. It's available on our website. It will be available on the WVL website, and anybody who wants to read and see the information that we have gathered, looking at the bottlenecks, the constraints, and the policy options that we're making in terms of what we want the government to do, what we're seeking from government to be able to generate productivity. And so as the government focuses on building back better, we believe that if we address the challenges and empower women in this sector, that we will see a great leap and that will contribute towards the economic recovery and the post-COVID economic recovery strategy. In the run-up to this meeting, we also had pre-meetings with an intergenerational forum. We believe it's important that we speak across generations, that we're not just talking to ourselves, but we're bringing in the younger and older generations to have a discussion around critical issues, to understand what are the challenges. Many a time the young people say they are also invisible and they're not seen and they're not heard and they don't have spaces to be able to air their grievances or make their recommendations or requests. And so we provided that forum, and the findings from it will also come out, some of the issues that were raised. And of course, we also had a national forum. So we brought women and men. We want to also say that we do work with men, because sometimes whenever we talk about women and girls, they say we are neglecting the boy child. But at Crown Trust, we work with men because women do not live in isolation. And I like to quote what Professor Wanjiko Kabira likes to say. She says, wherever there is a poor woman, there is a poor man. And so we do work with men, and you will see that many of our panelists here also are men who are eager to contribute and to champion the cause of women's empowerment and emancipation. And so we had a national forum bringing people from around the country, from different counties, over 20 counties, brought together to discuss and raise their issues, and we will hear what those issues are during the course of this meeting. Without taking too much more time, I want to thank all of you for tuning in, for logging in, for joining us in this forum, and I want to wish us a very, very successful forum. It is now my pleasure to introduce our very good friend. She is a friend, she's a colleague, she has been in the women's movement, she is now in government, so we have a voice in government, and who is always willing to partner with us, the very Honorable CAS, Beatrice Elachi. The Honorable Beatrice Elachi is currently the Cabinet Administrative Secretary for Public Service and Gender in the Ministry of Public Service and Gender. She's a renowned women's leader and leading female politician. Beatrice has made history as the first ever female government chief whip of the first Senate elected under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Honorable Elachi went on to record another first by becoming the first ever female speaker of the Nairobi City County. The Honorable Beatrice Elachi is a committed women's rights advocate, having worked for over 15 years in women's empowerment and advancement before joining politics to continue her work as a champion for women's rights. Honorable Elachi is a phenomenal woman leader and an inspiration to many women and girls. Welcome, Honorable Elachi.
Thank you so much, Daisy. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. Ladies, this morning, Your Excellency, the High Commissioner of Canada, Lisa Studler, the Country Director, Care Kenya, Mrs. Philippa Crossland-Taylor, the chairperson of Crown Trust, Ms. Miriam Cheragoni, the executive director, my good friend, Daisy Amdani, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure and honor to represent my cabinet secretary, Professor Margaret Kobia, in this inaugural forum of women with a theme of reshaping the Kenyan economy and through harnessing the potential of women. The women of Kenya are the backbone of our economy. And we know very well as women, with our different contributions and innovations that started way back through our mothers, our trailblazers, the contributions of economy of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, you remember very well, through the challenges that we face, the empowerment that we do to ourselves, we have different examples of how women in this country work to ensure they build the economy of this country. Women work through their groups, their investment groups. We have productive groups. We have women in manufacturing. We have women in informal sector that takes 80% of what we see in our country. In the agricultural sector, we have women who have stood, who have worked in the farms to ensure they build the economy of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, we come through a very, very tough year of the year 2020 through post-COVID. The pandemic indeed closed many of those SMEs of women, many of their different trades. But we thank God as we move to recovery, and as government and the Ministry of Public Service and Gender, it is our duty to ensure that women are part of the process of rebuilding back this economy. For us to achieve what we want as a country, we know we have to be inclusive to ensure women are indeed on the table of the economic recovery program that is being done by the Ministry of Treasury. We know very well as women, and as a ministry, I reiterate, that we shall stand firm with SDG 5, gender equality. And it's within gender equality that you find you are able to harness the different agendas of women in productivity, in creating an enabling environment for women to be able to work. Women have worked in this country. We know we have been fighting in Parliament to ensure we have a law to deal with unpaid employment that women do. In this country, you'll find women all over. Women wake up in the morning from the different informal sectors, informal homes that they come from, to just look for a job. And we have seen that. But I know as a government and as a ministry, we've also put in place different mechanisms and frameworks to enable women to empower themselves through the Women Fund, through the Uwezo Fund, which now we are trying to negotiate and see if we can make it one big fund so that women are able to tap in. We know that through the Huduma centers, why we devolved them was because women are the ones who could not find their IDs. Women are the ones who didn't have birth certificates. Women are the ones who got married when they are young, but could not get these documentations. Indeed, as a ministry, we will be able to start documenting. I know we lack documentation in terms of how women do their labors in this country. And it is indeed our duty as a ministry to ensure that happens. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank Crown Trust. And I know Crown Trust has worked within the counties. They've been able to go down to the different units to work with women. And we want to say, as a government, as a ministry, we shall work with Crown Trust, and we know the recommendations that come out from this forum will be able to gauge and to work together to achieve all that we want. I want to thank the Canadian Embassy and the Ambassador. She has stood firm with us, the Country Director Care. We want to say as a ministry, we appreciate what you do for women, and we will continue supporting any initiative that comes in. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that the Cabinet Secretary, Professor Kobia, is determined to ensure that this year we achieve indeed the economic empowerment of women, indeed the 2/3 gender that we have been looking and fighting for many years, but more importantly, to ensure that women are empowered economically in this country. As I finalize, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my great pleasure to launch the report that Crown Trust has indeed given us, and also declare this forum officially opened. I wish you great deliberations, and I really promise that within the recommendations, we shall be able to work together in partnership. Thank you so much, and thank you, Crown Trust and everyone. God bless you.
Nundu thina umasya mundu bandu basa noka mutwa bandu bangi nye inosi wikia ibinda kila nitegi na kindu inegi na mathina mengi muno ona ndiegi ngoini taba nayo kibu iyanengie mbui na nathukuma biashara yakwa nzio na nongelela maundu makwa mengi masio nitethetwe imurandi wake. Inendie bala naonete wiyawi bandu baso baswekyao nathi nosa ngilile mwana mana 5 nathwa sukali mutuanganu mauta giya na mayani nathi kugia athukumia la methi wa mothukuma baukiaoni inaso bisimbesa siakwa siege nzio pyu na ngilie mwana mana 5
mweri ugila walikie murandini ngwana aterekete kana kala kake wa kala na ko ba kala ba o adiuluka na chenako lakini gila murandi wogiyu wa munengi embeza no wari anu kumalu ko dio o katho ya sindu ile chitkatonya ko ya akuko kokugia akuthi bandu baza akuthi na isiara akuthi akutho wa sindu cha kuthocia akuka kuthocia na athocio kwithia no wa kwata okenduka kuthoya kana kindu yu ngona murandi uzu no endete nesa kaende u withia esawa na kuongela ndani yake na munda kindu kwa nuna kwate mangoto le makomba munda na akwata liu
kila kingi nasia ibinda kila kiayo kieko iya tusome thesi maundu ma GSL kula kwitu
itwethi watu kwatanite meringo raundi tukumye silingi giana ikyo kindethesi akuthoa ibila iyo kwana nikalilite kila nendie meringo raundi ibo nethiwe nebosu gya kukwata ngili 35 nathwaka space yoka kwa kanini kala ikoni kala oyu na ciana ciakwa
nasia nundu imuvea muno kwa kia nundu akunenge kadi ya NHIF na kuongivia kwa ebinda yasa nasi nitumite kadi yakwa ya NHIF ngagitwa nayo na ciana ciakwa ona kele tukanye kala disabled ikanagitiwe na kadi ino ngumitumia ona yukende na kunywa ndawa nasia kadi ona kiaya umako ngethi wa ready kumivia mpaka ebinda gyakwa gya muthia ya kuma bayo luwazi kitumi yake kadi ni ndethetie saidi na ngavikia kwithiwa nina ugiti musio na wima wamwe
ingona tukethwa twina andu menga ingi mabwana tameri withia twisawa
na tunga mubea mwingi muno na nundu icirika ii yakia nigitutethete kwa kweli igimbukilite nundu nyigambumite bala ne nze pio na gwita kwithingwa ngwe makiana ni andu ni angi ngwa ni natei ende ayua na toka manamo memba thukia nundu makwana bala ni manambumite bo na andu maitwo na menda kuboya munyu menda boya skali ninyango manenge itio ndola manambo ya
nina beneficiary maneli na meongo nyanya na itatu na scholastica no mwe katoka beneficiary ala ni dhana mo beneficiary asume maneli na meongo nyanya na itatu nina sobisie ikundi 14 na scholastica yetha ndini wa kikundi kimwe kitwa Tumaini Group Savings and Loan kwa uni project itumite etha emulumu kila kitawa women empowerment nundu yu scholastica no kubulana na ibetila cia muika wake na matia yangewa yulua maisha make undu methiawa kila kindani tha sendini wa wia undu kuma ni kuona andu alame na ukwati wa nthi maithikia kwitha na ukwati wa yulo mundu ulo ate ya nena yambia kunena chuchu nicho kituma andiwa kana ni nthukumie mathukuma nundu wa kuhakikisha mundu ula winthi ni wabikia kukila na nitwamina na kutethanya kou nicho kitumine bata na uyo ndukuma ni asanti
inya ningo tonga hoya muno ichirika yake ni yambika nesa na ngai na muteithie muno ayuo na mwacogeria kumukangira jane sawa ndigacoka nyomba ingi ayu ngende ya na kuthukuma ndigacoke na ingi nundu ni mambugiria
Thank you very much, the Chief Administrative Secretary, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, for revealing to us the support and the continued commitment that the Ministry of Public Service and Gender has continued to contribute towards the women of this country. Indeed, listening to you, there is hope. In the ministry, we have a partner as the women of this country, and indeed will advance the agenda of women. I also wish to thank the previous moderator, Terry-Ann Chebet, for taking us through the opening ceremony. I am Betty Miner. I will be your moderator in the next sessions, and I look forward to our commitment and our journey through this day. I'm extremely delighted, actually, and quite honored to be a part of this session today and to contribute to this inaugural Women's Economic Forum Kenya 2021 with the theme of reshaping the Kenyan economy through harnessing women's potential. Often, the potential of women and the contribution that women have made into the economy has been unrecognized. Women, on the other hand, have continued to plow through and contribute in shaping this economy and in harnessing the development potential that they possess. Women are producers, women are consumers, women are taxpayers, women are traders, women give of their labor, all this contributing to the value-added product that is our economy as a country. As well, in addition to that, women continue to be the most powerful yet silent and often unrecognized agent that contributes to the software that runs this economy. As they carry out their care roles and reproductive roles, women are continuing to work behind the scenes and ensuring that they're contributing to this economy. And yet, more often than not, women's contribution to the economy is often trivialized at best, and in most cases is mostly ignored. It is for this reason that the conversations that we are having over the next 2 days are absolutely vital. In the next 2 days, we will walk the corridor of the Kenyan economy. We will open every door along that corridor. We will ask ourselves, what is behind these doors? What is behind this door that opens only a small slit so women are not able to get in and take full ownership and full control in what is happening in those rooms? We'll look at the different sectors and ask ourselves, what are the opportunities in these sectors? What are the factors that continue to hinder women's participation in these sectors? we will ask ourselves, how can women better position to be able to take advantage of these opportunities? As women, we recognize that we need to position ourselves strategically if we are to drive this economy, not just in Kenya, but even as we look yonder, there is great opportunity in Africa and beyond. We know that we have the skills. We know that we have the drive. We know that we have the work ethic that actually can transform and take advantage of the great opportunities that are presented in our economy as a country, but even in the economy right across the region. But we are also aware and alive to the fact that there are various barriers, there are various constraints that have continued to keep women back. And for this reason, as we walk through these 2 days, we will be asking ourselves, how can we expose these barriers and these hindrances and come up with common solutions so that we can unlock this logjam that seems to keep women suppressed and not able to fully shatter the glass ceiling? On the first day of this conference, we will focus on 4 critical sectors. We will focus on agriculture and the power of agriculture and the opportunities that exist in the agricultural sector for business. We will look at the manufacturing sector and the value addition potential and how this is a driver of economies, how this really is a key that can contribute to the takeoff of this economy. We will look at technology and innovation and the power that can be harnessed through technology and innovation in driving prosperity and development. We will also look at media. Media as a powerful tool, as a tool that women can use to reshape and to recast the narrative about women and the economy. Each of these sessions are structured as panel discussions led by industry experts from the private sector, the academia, and even the policy space. So through this, we'll be bringing together a rich conversation of the different people, looking at the different perspectives of each of these sessions. Our first session today is on agriculture. Agriculture is the backbone of this economy. That is said in every policy, every blueprint and policy paper in this country. Agriculture poses great potential, and a big percentage of the population of women is actually engaged in the agricultural sector. But before I hand over the session to the agricultural experts, allow me to tickle your mind with a few statistics. As we all know, food security and development is very closely correlated. But one of the things we know is that Africa, and even Kenya, is actually a net food importer. Africa's population is projected to grow to 2.5 billion by 2050. 25% of the world population will be living in Africa. 60% of that population will be living, over 60% of that population will be living in urban areas. All those people need to eat food. For as long as people are alive, they eat. Who will grow that food? That's a big market potential. So even as we think about these concepts and these terms, sometimes we also have to look at what is the scale, how does yonder look like? Where are we going? What is the big potential out there? Now, we need to ask ourselves, who will produce this food? Who will move this food from the market, from the farm to the market? Who will sell this food? Whereas, as the population becomes more and more sophisticated, there is need for value addition. Who will value add this food? As we do that, we need to recognize that if we don't do it as women, someone else will, because there's a big business case for this. So without further ado, allow me to introduce the first session. The session will begin with a power talk, and this power talk will be done by our great panelist, Dr. Patricia Murugami. Dr. Patricia Murugami is a global leadership catalyst and the founder and chief executive officer of Breakthrough Leadership Transformation. She is also an ITC. She's also an ITC She Trades global consultant, specializing in crisis management, leadership, resilience, and new normal strategies. She's a published author, an award-winning speaker, transformational coach, and leadership educator. She holds a doctorate in business administration, transformational leadership, and governance from International School of Management in Paris. She's passionate about inclusive leadership and has enabled many women and other minorities in East Africa to serve as executive and board directors. She has also served on multiple boards herself and is a sought-after board advisor and executive team leadership coach. Her work, which has reached over 60,770 people, has been honored with awards such as Top 40 Under 40 2010 and Jacobs' Well Most Impactful 12 Women in the Region in 2015, as well as the National Diversity and Inclusion Business Executive Champion Award in 2019. She is joyfully married. So when you see her pretty smile, just know she's joyfully married to Morogami, and together they are bringing up their children. Dr. Patricia, welcome. We are very honored to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much, Betty, for that warm introduction. And you know, as I was thinking about this morning and as I was getting ready, I thought about the person who made this outfit. Her name is Mudeu. She's a small micro entrepreneur who's designing clothes. And how did I get to know about Mudeu, who's half my age? It was thanks to Florence Kiburi at Safaricom, whose mandate is to champion women all over Kenya to actually rise up and to grow and to develop themselves. You know, there's no way we could have been here, and I really appreciate the work that has been done by Crown Trust, Global Affairs Canada, CARE International, NRSA, New Revenue Solutions Africa, Women Voice and Leadership Program, I'll talk a little bit about that, Global Affairs Canada, CARE Canada, CARE Kenya, Crown Trust, Uraia, Crew, and Urgent Action Fund. Actually, the business we are in is urgent. It is urgent because as I watched that video of that woman in Makueni talking about the fact that she couldn't afford a donkey until she learned how to navigate the challenges that she faces, I thought to myself that we all have these challenges, but in different dynamics. And so, as you can see on the top of my slide, you can actually see that one of the things that I have talked about, and I will talk about today, is that it's not about empowerment on the outside, but bringing the inner power out. I like what Betty said and the previous speakers, that there are some blockages that are ahead of us. When you look at that screen, imagine that you're that woman looking at the finishing line. And as you look at the finishing line, you're wondering, how will I get to the end? But can you see that there's a shadow behind her? And I think Camilla Harris actually got us to see that we can see the shadow of the women who are behind us and the support, and more importantly, the courage that we have from within. I hope you can see that there's a superwoman shining right behind that image. But for her to actually become that superwoman, she needs to surmount the challenges that are in between the start and the finishing line. You can see there the ideas. She has a business that she's thinking about. She has started it off. There are problems both in the business, in the market, perhaps even at home. There's a crisis like the COVID crisis that we had and we continue to have as a pandemic. There are taxes, KRA there. Just yesterday I was talking to someone who was talking about the fact that we have to find a way to ensure that businesses are registered but are not punitive as a result of that registration. Because the minute you're in the tax regime, what happens is a lot of people in the business space and micro-entrepreneurs always feel they want to operate under the radar because of the punitive tax regime. But perhaps you have an opportunity in this year, 2021, to talk to the lobbyists, to work with the regulators, to talk about how we can ensure the environment actually enables us to get to the finishing line. And that's why we're here for the next 2 days. So as you can see on the next slide, something is happening to this woman. This woman is starting to rise. And she's rising where there's no path. If you can see it very clearly, that's water, turbulent water. And as she's rising from one step to the other, what's happening? First, she has the posture of looking forward. Even as you watch this conference and forum from wherever you are, what is your posture? Are you just slunking down, feeling that you don't have the power or the energy to engage? Are you just watching this muted and just thinking just another forum? I hope that you can choose to be fully present, but to also have the posture of building an empire, not a hustle, not a side hustle, but an empire that will start with the work we do today and that will pass on to multiple generations. Look at that lady on that screen. She's unraveling the path, but her posture is one of moving forward. So today, in the 1, 2, 3 things you'll take away from this forum, what is your posture? Is it a posture of learning? Is it a posture that challenges yourself to say, I can become my next best self? And what's my next best self? It's looking at who I was yesterday and choosing to be a better version of who I was yesterday. You know, as you see her, the next thing is that she's been followed by her family. Perhaps that's a husband, maybe that's a colleague, and then there's children. So this speaks to the statistics that women are invisible sometimes, but in fact they're the backbone that shield and open the way, even in murky waters. So let's look at some statistics. I like what Betty said about, let me tickle you. So let me use her phrase around just looking at the dynamics. McKinsey last year said that it will take 142 years to narrow the gender parity gap. 142 years. How many lifetimes do we need to think about? So we're not going to challenge this number, but what we're going to do is accelerate and reduce the number of years that it will take to build gender parity. And how do we do that? By creating economic opportunities, which is what this forum is all about. When I remember when Zuhura invited me to speak today, it's just about exactly that. Mention another woman's name in a room that she is not part of. That's how you create economic opportunities. That's how you widen the cake. You bake a bigger cake as opposed to thinking, this cake is mine, me, myself, and I will not share it. If you look at the array of panelists, it's because Daisy Amdani and the rest of the team have thought about who else can contribute to building a bigger cake. So the first thing, economic opportunities. The second thing, go back to school. I know you're wondering, which school? Go back to school by choosing what it is that you're reading. Ask yourself, what am I going to learn about the new emerging problems that COVID-19 has brought to the fore? Is my business solving the problem of this season, or is it even looking forward to see some of the opportunities that this crisis has presented? A third thing is develop talent. Think about the talent within your family. You know, this morning my daughter was telling me, Mom, you're going to speak in that Women Economic Forum? And yes, eventually it'll be Africa and then world. And I was telling her, you know, that little business you have, she's just 13, but just by trying to nurture the talent in our homes as women, with our nieces, our daughters, even our sons, because this conversation is not about us versus the men. It's about working together to create a more human and humane world. So think about the talent around you, the experiences you have. Ask yourself, how can you grow? Do you have a mentor? I suggest have a tribe of mentors, not just one mentor. One who's going to challenge you about your business. Another one will talk about the cash flows. Another one will talk about leadership. Another one will talk about how to do your tax planning. Another one will help you navigate wealth. Because I always say that ambition is not a dirty word. The important thing is to be ambitious for a higher purpose. So this 142 years, we are going to find a way through this forum and the actions that we take, because these insights must be translated into action so that we can break through the challenges we have now. As you can see on my next slide, you will then begin to ask yourself, is the future here? When I started talking about what World Economic Forum talked about in 2015, that the future is about to arrive, a couple of things triggered me. How ready and future ready are we now from a business, country, policy, continent perspective? If 25% of the world population will come from Africa, what are the chances that we can navigate that challenge as an opportunity? Because I see it as an opportunity, while many may see it as a challenge. Just look at what the future is showing us. 10% of people wearing clothes connected to the internet. If you have a smartwatch, your phone is connected to the internet. So you're already part of that 10%. If you carry your phone on you all the time, in a sense, phones have almost become apparel. So this movement has moved even faster. 5% of consumer products will be printed in 3D. The first transplant of a 3D printed liver. 3D printed liver. Can we even fathom that? And one of my most favorite, the first AI robot on the corporate board of directors. Now, this all looks like it's very far, but as a matter of fact, just the other day I was doing some work with a global entity, and on the panel, I remember asking them, so who's the speaker who's speaking before us? And they told me, that's Penina. And I said, who is Penina? How come she doesn't have a surname? Because Penina is a robot. And I thought to myself, wow, what am I doing today in my business as an entrepreneur to ensure that I can navigate the future, which will have robots, but will also challenge us in terms of managing how we work with robots and with human beings? I think we have an opportunity here when you look at policies to ask ourselves, what are the 3 things that we need to do? Give women the power to make decisions, but I think we must give ourselves the permission to make those decisions. I think that's where the struggle sometimes is. A second thing is control and benefit from economic gains. And a third thing is all about learn how you can unlearn the things that no longer serve you well. So let's see what it is that's holding us back. On my next slide is something that all of us are familiar with. Fear. In my experience talking to women, both at board level, women who are running micro enterprises, teenagers who are mentoring through something we've started called Woman of Substance on Telegram, fear is the cutting across theme. The fear of failure, the fear of people will laugh at me, the fear of I should have done this a long time ago. And so I want to challenge you. When you think about fear, challenge yourself to ask yourself, are you going to forget everything you know and run, which is one way of looking at fear? Or let me introduce you to another way of looking at fear. Face everything and rise. On that image, you can see there's someone who's climbing 90 degrees. When is the last time you felt like that? For many people in business, many women entrepreneurs, many micro and small and business owners, you always feel like you're walking up a 90 degrees angle. So I want to challenge you. Face that fear. F stands for face. Face the thing that you fear the most and challenge yourself to rebrand failure as lessons learned. Everything. Do a stakeholder map and ask yourself, who is important in my current journey now to build this business from point A to point X? Not A to B, A to X. Give yourself permission to become a beginner. When you think about A, adapt with agility. And R, this has to do with ensuring that face everything and rise. So as I conclude this power talk, just 10 minutes of your time, I hope you've honored yourself and you've chosen to rise up from the challenges you're facing. Just the other day, December 5th, I had a COVID baby, and my COVID baby was launching my first book, Rise. I didn't know that I would come up with this book, but I have found that by stretching yourself to do something you never thought you could do, it expands your brain and it allows you to start thinking of ways in which you can navigate, challenge yourself, and overcome those challenges that are holding you back. Ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are around the world, dialing into this Women Economic Forum, the very first of its kind, I want to challenge you to face everything and rise. But I want to ensure that as women, we are nurturers. If you are going to rise, don't rise alone. As you lift your hand to choose to challenge that bias, as International Women's Day is telling us, I want you to ensure that your other hand is carrying at least 5 other women who can then ascend to the next step, and you can help them unlock whatever it is. Because you know, at the end of the day, rising without lifting others is not what we are called to do as women. We are called to nurture, to grow, and to build intergenerational businesses. I wish each and every one of you the challenge and ability to become a beginner and to face everything that you are struggling with now and rise for a higher purpose. Thank you very much.
Kenya has a challenge of income poverty, where you have communities, particularly those living in arid and semi-arid region, because they do not have many opportunities for income generating activities, so they end up having very low income or no incomes at all. Another challenge is with regard to regular shocks. For example, you have drought, floods, or sometimes an epidemic.
Profit is a rural finance program supported by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, which is a UN agency, and the government of Kenya. Financial graduation is a subcomponent of technical services. The rationale for selecting financial graduation to a program which is essentially rural finance was to address a segment of the population that is deemed to be too poor, that they can't interact in the financial and commodity markets.
The graduation approach, pioneered by BRAC in Bangladesh in 2002, is the creative and innovative solution that accompanies the poorest households on their own pathway out of poverty. Through comprehensive and sequenced steps, the graduation approach supports families in their own journeys to build resilience and sustainable livelihoods. Results from this evidence-backed method are inspiring adoption in over 40 countries by NGOs and governments. Using technical expertise from BRAC and in cooperation with the Government of Kenya, CARE and the BOMA project are implementing the Profit Financial Graduation Program, which targets 2,600 women and youth.
BOMA works with the extreme poor in the arid and semi-arid areas of northern Kenya. We empower women, build resilient communities and families, instill hope, and change the conversation about what's possible. Samburu County has some of the worst basic poverty indicators. I believe it's in the top 15 poorest counties in Kenya.
CARE's mission is to eradicate poverty, and in Kenya, we target women and girls as our impact group, and we look at poverty that is caused by gender inequality. The program that we're working on right now is in Chuso sub-county of the larger Kitui County.
The families in the Profit Financial Graduation Program receive 6 critical interventions. They include an income-generating asset, a consumption stipend, links to the National Health Insurance Program, savings support through groups, training on social and health messages, and mentorship through household visits.
This project has brought about a lot of changes for the participants in Samburu. The women that are participating in the project now have an income where they're, through the businesses that they've started with support from the project, so they have a regular income, they have access to better food, so they're much more food secure. They have access to health through their enrollment in the NHIF. And I think for me the most compelling change that I've seen in the women is their agency, their empowerment. As members of the community, as women, they're much more in control of their own destinies.
Most of the beneficiaries will tell you that they were voiceless. So as a result of being mentored in terms of household visits to emphasize what they have been learning, and in terms of mentorship at their income generating activities and mentorship at the VSLAs, they can articulate their issues better.
Ende ayu anatoka manamo memba tokia no nimakwana bala nino nene ni manambu mijabo danando maeto na menda kuboya monyo menda boya skali ninyango manenge itu yondola manambo ya
na yo ajo kwa daga kunya baras go to mada kompoka yo njara ngoto numoi mikela utanto kinikia yesipetele amkia da sinu kusudo nikinta ishitara pa na makore kitokukia uyo kia tanto kopoke.
Financial graduation has opened our eyes. We have seen it is possible to identify and work with people who could otherwise not be reached, people who are ultra poor, and make them lead sustainable livelihoods. To that extent, financial graduation, using the lessons that we have learned, will expand in this country within the social protection programming space.
Extremely poor people can often be invisible to their neighbors and to their governments, discriminated against and excluded from the most basic of services and opportunities. Graduation walks with families as they transform their own futures. We are all on a journey to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 1, ending extreme poverty by 2030, and it demands that we travel together with governments, with donor agencies, NGOs, and the private sector, and that we accompany poor families so that we leave no one behind.
What a powerful power talk that we have just heard from Dr. Patricia Murugami. She has set the stage for really what this conversation is about. It's about shifting the envelope. It's about having courage as women to think the unthinkable, to push the boundary, to pursue our dreams, and to ensure that we are climbing the ladder. And she has shown us that a lot of times that ladder, there is no path prior, and we are unraveling that path as we go along. So we all need each other as we move on this journey. The next is a panel discussion. This panel will be led by Dr. Lusike Wasilwa. Dr. Lusike Wasilwa holds a postdoctorate in plant pathology from Rutgers University, New Jersey, a PhD in plant science, and an MSc in horticulture from the University of Arkansas, Fayetteville, and a BSc degree in agriculture from University of Eastern Africa, Baraton. She has co-authored scientific and technical papers in plant pathology, fruit, nut, oil, crops, vegetable, and root and tuber crops research, pollinators, mainstreaming biodiversity for food, nutrition. Dr. Wasilwa advocates commercialization and utilization of underutilized and indigenous fruits, promotes use of precision agriculture for increased production and productivity, with special emphasis in reduction of losses attributed to pests, diseases, and pre- and post-harvest losses, advancing post-production practices, mainstreaming biodiversity to contribute to food nutrition and income security, and issues pertaining to sustainable agroecologies. She's the Director of Crop Systems of Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, where she provides leadership in integrated horticulture, staple and industrial crops, product value chains, for increased commercializations and competitiveness. Dr. Wasilwa serves on the advisory board of Emerge Africa, FAO Agroecology, the Kenya Avocado Project, and the Research Grant Management Committee of Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project Commission. She's also on the advisory committees of Horticulture Impact Project in SNV. She's the chair and vice chair of the Horticulture International Advisory Board for Horticulture CRSP, the Kenya Agricultural Productivity and Agribusiness Program, CAPUP, Grants Advisory and Approval Committee, and the Advisory Board for the African Journal of Horticultural Science. Dr. Wasilwa is a recipient of 3 medals from the International Society for Horticultural Science in recognition of service and fellowship from Gender and Diversity Rockefeller Fellowship Program to enhance the careers of women crop scientists in East Africa. She was recognized by AWARD for her dedication and commitment to excellence in mentoring from 2008 to 2010. So Dr. Wasilwa will be moderating a distinguished panelist of experts in the agricultural sector. Evidently, she brings a wealth of experience, a lot of scientific knowledge, and this will surely be an exciting session. Dr. Wasilwa, welcome.
Thank you very much. I really thank Crown Trust and CARE Kenya, and also the Canadian High Commission for actually funding, supporting, and taking the time to support this Women Economic Forum. It was about time that women were able to be taken from where they are and to be able to stand up to be playing an important role in the economic development of Kenya. This forum on reshaping the Kenyan economy through harnessing women's potential is key, and it has come at a time when women are fighting for their rights. Women are 50% of the population. Actually, it's 51% of the population. So we're more than men. So in every aspect of agriculture, we should have at least half of the people participating as women. That is a must. It is not a choice. We must be there. We must stand. When there's a man who leads, a woman should be the assistant. And when a woman who leads, a man should be the assistant. That's where we're seeing the gender balances. When we look in terms of the issues of agribusiness, one of the things that we cannot leave out is the issue of land. Who owns the land? When you look at our social, cultural systems, and you see who actually owns the land, it's most of the times it's a man, because it's a patriarchal culture. It's men that own, but it's now changing. You know, before, when a family didn't have a boy as a firstborn, it was a problem. But nowadays, all men with daughters say, thank God. And when the daughter is the firstborn, they say, yeah, because women never forget their families. We're the managers of all aspects of life, including what food is eaten, what food is grown. So how do we then empower women? How do we empower women who don't even own the land? How do we empower women, even when they own the land, how they can access the inputs on the land so that they can maximize production and productivity? How do we empower women with being able to get the finances to be able to better farming practices? Behind every successful man, there is a woman. And I'm putting this in this order. There's always a woman who's driving. How can we now start saying behind every successful woman, there is a man? That's what we're here today to discuss. We're discussing the issues of agriculture as a business and harnessing the opportunities for women in this area. I have 2 speakers. The first one has been able to get online. That is Dr. Peter Okoth. And Dr. Okoth, we are hoping that you're ready to be able to give us your insights on improving the issues of women in agribusiness. Dr. Okoth will give us a presentation, and if he's unable to do so, I'll be able to do it for him so you can hear what are the issues of women in agribusiness and what women need to do. When you look in terms of agriculture, we say in Kenya agriculture is the backbone to the economy. And I'm always asking myself, is it? Is it really the backbone? You listened to the budget the other day. Now, those who are not Kenyans, I'm sorry, but we had our budget. How much money was given to agriculture? Who got most of the money? If agriculture is the backbone of Kenya's economy and many other African countries, then why don't these governments therefore give money to reflect the contributions of agriculture to the economy? Agriculture contributes about 37% of the economy directly, and when it comes to agribusiness, another 25%. Then why are we not getting about 50% of the funding so that we can really support the issue of agriculture is the backbone of the economy? Why are we not doing this? Yeah? Because when we start doing this, then the amount of loss of food will go down. We're losing globally 30% of what we grow. In Kenya, it's even higher. Globally, it's 1.3 billion tons that are lost annually. Eh? And then, because of this loss, 690 million people are hungry. Can you imagine not even being able to afford a meal? In Kenya, 4 to 6 million are hungry annually. They do not have enough food. Eh? We're talking about eating a balanced diet. When we don't have a balanced diet in the first 1,000 years, first 1,000 days, it means that our physical growth and our mental growth will be affected. When this happens, will Kenya ever produce another Obama? We've ruled America once. We are the fastest runners. We've been able to run the marathon in less than 2 hours. How can we ensure that there's enough food? We also know that we only have 10 seasons up to 2030 to change this around, when 62% of Kenya's population will live in an urban setting. These people will need to eat. That means when at independence we had 100% of the people in Kenya doing agriculture, to where the number has dropped down to about 40% actually doing active agriculture, then how are we going to produce enough food for our people? And then not only that, when you look at the way we produce food and the way it's consumed, when you go to many marketplaces, there are women and men cutting kale, packaging it so that somebody just goes home and quickly cooks it. You see women frying fish, and then they're able to you take that fish home and you're able to prepare it. So what is happening? The way we consume food, our consumption has changed. These are the avenues where women can come in when it comes to terms of agribusiness. My dream is one day to go to the supermarket and find a frozen cube of amaranth or African nightshade or even kale or cabbage that we're used to, frozen. All I do is go and freeze and cook because I do have electricity. But if I don't, now we do have the dried vegetables. The only problem is that you look at the cost. It's a bit too high. So what do we need to do in terms of technologies and innovations to reduce the cost of these dried vegetables? This is a place where women can be able to come in. Because when you look at the landscapes, particularly in Kenya, what you're seeing is many, many greenhouses where people invested a lot of money to grow these crops under covered horticulture. But now the plastic is cut. That means that greenhouse is not being used. How do we then take those greenhouses and use them for drying vegetables, or use them for producing seedlings, so that we produce the seedlings in a faster and shorter time, and we can be able to predict how long it will take for the seedling to be ready? Or you're drying vegetables in a clean environment so that now you lengthen the shelf life. All of these are creating businesses. All of these are agri-businesses. So when you look at agribusiness and you look at the crop value chains, from the time of technology development to up to the time of consumption and markets, you can see a woman everywhere. Everywhere there is a woman. When you come to consumption, you find many women. They're always the ones who are in the kitchen, although the best chefs are men. But you find women in the kitchen. Then when you move back to the marketplaces, in the informal rural markets, the predominant number in terms of gender, you tend to find more women in the marketplaces. So you see, women are still there, okay? When you move down the value chain, now you're coming to transport. What happens is a gender shift. you see more men are the ones who are moving those vehicles and moving the produce. When you go to aggregation sites, nobody has done any study on that, but you'll be surprised that it'll be a little bit more men than women, but there's no reason why that can't be 50% men and women in aggregation sites. I'm moving down the value chain. When it comes to production, now we are coming to the land. Who owns the land? It's mostly men that own the land. But who works the land? It's mostly women that work that land. Again, here women come into that agribusiness value chain. Whether they're the ones providing the services, whether they're the ones harvesting, packaging, women are playing that role. Then you go back to input suppliers, the agrovets. You'll find a higher percent, almost 80–90% is more men running these services. Then you move back to the technology developers, and that is where it begins and the problem. It's so sad. Only 25% of these technology developers are scientists like I. The number's gone down. But we have efforts from African women in agriculture research and development, AWARD, who have done everything in terms of building women, training them in terms of leadership to really come in and play a role. And because of what AWARD did is why I have the position I have today and many other ladies that are now in leadership positions, so that we can have an impact on the agribusiness value chain to be able to make sense and really contribute. Because, you know, a woman knows where the shoe hurts. So we know where we need to emphasize. And that's why I'm emphasizing on food. I don't want to spend 2 hours in the kitchen preparing a meal when I can do it in 15 minutes. So what do we need to do in Kenya and in Africa to make it easier, like what I saw in the United States? You don't always have to cut onions, cut vegetables, cut potatoes. You can have them already pre-prepared. But while we're doing this in agribusiness, we're also trying to reduce the post-harvest losses. We've had several speakers talking about issues of post-harvest losses. We lose a lot. When you see a woman in the market who's now marketing this produce, and what is she stepping on? About a foot of what she could have sold. We're losing too much. When we lose 30%, 40%, up to 70% for some of the crops, how much are we losing? And can we afford to lose? When our population doubles every 17 years, we can't afford to lose. We need to minimize these losses, the post-harvest losses. To do this, we need proper storage facilities. Governments need to invest in storage facilities so that we have farmers who know what to do to that produce, and then the aggregators know how to store it, and all the way up to the markets and consumption. So when we minimize losses, it will mean we will not need to increase the area under production. We just have to reduce the losses and to maximize. If for bananas we can lose up to 75%, African indigenous vegetables up to 57%. Tomatoes we lose up to 60%, and these are actual studies. Potatoes up to 15%, and potato is the second most important food security crop in Kenya. When it comes to dry cereals like maize, we lose up to 40%. Those losses are so high. Maybe for you to understand that, you're looking at 40%. It's 40 million over 100 million. That's what you're losing. You're choosing to throw 40 million. So when I change the percentage to money, maybe that's when it will register into many people. Why should we spend all our sweat trying so hard to produce these crops and then lose them? Where do women come in? Where women's role in agribusiness? Where do they come in? How can women come in, get these numbers, the issues of data being available for the women so they know what to do? How do women access this information? A lot of information is now digital. There are all these mobile applications. But look at the phones women actually have. Do they have the smartphones? Or they have the phone that they can use for talking and texting? How many women actually have the smartphones? And now we look at the demographics. I'm not talking about the youth. I'm talking about those women who are close to the land. So they'll tend to be older, 50, 60. What kind of phones? And when they have those phones, how many of these women actually access these mobile applications. I bought my mom a Techno XYZ Phantom, the top range, because she wanted a phone that you do this, right? Yeah, gave it to her, tried to teach her how to do this and access. She says this phone takes more credit. She didn't want it. For her, she saw it as a phone that wastes money. How can we make it cheaper, these services cheaper, so that women are able to afford? You know, women are the managers. 1 shilling, 5 shillings, that is a waste of money. For them to be able to access, when they have all of this information, they don't need the bundles to be able to go on. But they can be able to have the information to know where the markets are, information to know what to do to reduce losses, information they need to be able to manage a pest using the safe ways of management. Women need this information, but most of the times they are not the managers of the money they make. So the little they have, how can we make sure it has mileage so that that money helps them? So that when they have that information, we have increased production and productivity. This is all about women in agribusiness. You know, how do we improve productivity in this era of climate change? It's now raining in Kenya. It's not supposed to rain until mid-March for the long rains. And actually, I went to the ASAL areas, Makueni, Kitui, Machakos, and I asked myself, are these ASALs? This place has more trees than the high rainfall areas of Western Kenya, where most of the trees have been cut. In the ASAL areas, they're growing a lot of mangoes. The environment has changed completely. So when we're looking in terms of how do we transform our food systems to make sense for us, how do we make farmers, women farmers know that when you're planting a citrus tree or a papaya, you can plant a few grevilleas so that you have trees that improve the environment, and you can even use that wood for fencing, even for firewood. How can we instill this in women? Because 70% is what they're the ones who are controlling. They manage the youth. The men usually tend to come in a lot when now money is coming in. So we're targeting women in agribusiness to see how we can give them a voice, so that the technologies that we develop, the innovations that we develop with them, we're able to create awareness so that they know that they're there, and we're also able to build capacity of all. We have a Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture project. And when farmers are invited, the lead farmers, we've been asking the counties, please, if there are 6 farmers, 3 be women and 3 men, please. Most of the time, the counties will just send men. And it's really infuriating, you know? Why have we forgotten that person who works on the ground? Why do you think that they will not understand? My mother raised me, my mom trained me, my dad too. They have educated me and instilled and made me to who I am, both of my parents. So when the counties are asked, select some lead farmers, are you trying to tell me there are no women lead farmers? I don't believe that. My mom is an excellent farmer. I'm one that is going to become a farmer, and I'll be a very good one. And we have many youth, female, who are farmers. How do we not forget this 51% of the population and make sure whenever there are any activities, half of who is invited is a woman? Women in agribusiness. Forget that 1/3 gender role. 50% gender. That is the way agriculture should go, because that's the way our populations are. How do we then develop, because the money is not controlled by women, low-cost, effective production and processing technologies that are able to minimize on post-harvest losses, but they're also able to ensure that what you're going to sell is a perfect mango, it's a perfect orange, it's a perfect plum, it's a perfect omena, or that small fish. How do we ensure, because we always think omena smells like that, that's poor post-harvest processing. How do we ensure that the technologies we're giving to women are accessible and they're affordable? Those are 2 things that have a big impact on the issues of women in agribusiness. Also, when we look at the soils, everywhere in Kenya you'll find them growing maize, everywhere. And when they grow maize, they put DAP fertilizer, diammonium phosphate fertilizer. What does this fertilizer do over time? The soil becomes acidic. So when you look at the map of Kenya and acid soils, it mimics the map of Kenya with high rainfall. Our soils are no longer healthy. They are no longer healthy. How do we improve health of soils? You can keep putting green manure, so you plant a crop and incorporate it into the soil. We can also keep adding farmyard manure, you know, but who owns the cows? Can we access this farmyard manure? We can practice different farming practices like conservation agriculture, where we're minimizing tillage practices. But the issues of acid soils is because of growing one crop year in, year out. It's always maize. Can we learn how to crop rotate and grow other crops so that we improve the health of our soils? Because if it's a woman in agribusiness, it's all about agriculture. You know, how can she have more produce to be able to handle, whether it's sold fresh or value added? So it all begins at the soil. How do we improve our soil health? It's been about 120 years where we've been putting fertilizer in our soil, and our soils are weak. How do we start working so that we tell farmers it's good to put legumes in your soil because they do nitrogen fixing, so nitrogen is naturally being added to your soil. Then you plow them in. Don't remove them or burn them. Plow that matter into the soil so you're improving your soil health. Then also, don't always grow one thing. Do crop rotation or have several crops. You're diversifying the crops you're growing to minimize your losses. So if there's a fall armyworm that affects the maize, then you don't have any issue, because then you'll have sorghum that you'll be able to harvest because you planted sorghum. You also planted beans alongside your maize, so you're able to sell your beans. So how do we diversify the crops that actually help in terms of improving the soil, but also allow you to continue to market, to be able to sell the produce that comes from your farm? How can we be able to do this? When you look at farmers in Kenya and farmers in Africa, actually, we're all the same. And we look at the farming we do. How is it done? Is it with a hoe? Is it so manual? How much of agriculture are we mechanizing? Because if you want to put women in agribusiness, after they've spent their whole day doing all these household chores and everything else, you don't expect them again to go to the farm and then they're with a hoe digging. Yet you can mechanize. Now we have small cultivators that cost about 15,000. One person can plow or weed an acre in a relatively short time, making it cheaper. It then use much fuel. And then how do we then get the small machinery to help farming so that even the youth are interested in agriculture? So what we want to do is, what are those machines, and are they there? Yes, they are. Contact CALRO, Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, our agriculture mechanization. They have small implements that can help you improving your farming, whether it's a thresher, so you don't spend the whole day banging finger millet or sorghum, but you just put in the thresher and in an hour it has done 30 bags. That makes a big difference. So it allows the woman to have more time to do other things than staying the whole time threshing. How do we increase mechanization in agriculture in Africa and in Kenya? When we look at our production systems, it's rain-fed agriculture. Right now it's raining. All the water is just going. There's a lot of water harvesting now. You see it along the landscapes. Even the way we plant, we're using different technologies, where in dry areas they dig a ditch, then put the crops there. So when the rain falls, it stays in the ditch, the tumbukiza technology. So that when we're able to do this, we're able to harness the water and have the water available for a while. But in Kenya, there have been a lot of initiatives in increasing the area that is irrigated. We've completely underutilized our water. This is where we need proper policies in place to help it, so that on March 15th, whether there is rain or no rain, all the crops are being planted because we've harvested water and we can irrigate until the rains come. So we stop this over-dependency on rain-fed agriculture. The government has done a lot, it's doing a lot, but it needs to do a lot more. We're now over 50 years. We can't keep on saying we don't have enough rain. In the United States, when it goes from winter to spring, spring everybody's planting. You can't wait, so they're irrigating. By the summer, the crops are mature, they're out, then winter comes. They have no choice. But for us, we can grow crops all year round for 12 months. All we just need is water. When we do this, then we are creating jobs. We are creating jobs. Remember I said women, the issues of technology and phones is a bit too much, but the youth love technology. And this is where you have these genders, different genders, joining forces so that the youth can now create jobs and use the information on their mobile phones to be able to inform where the market, how do you reach the market, how do you sell, therefore really increasing the issues of agribusiness. So if we're able to do this, where we have both gender working together, then we'll be able to create impact. Because impact is all about putting food on the table and money in the pocket. And to be able to do that, it's issues of having good systems of agribusiness. To do agribusiness properly, we must capacity build. To capacity build, we must train. We must have fora close to where these people are. You don't expect my mom to go online and go into one of these video conferencing, then expect her to pay attention. My mom wants to see somebody standing in front of her and talking in a language that she understands. Can we start doing this? There are so many youth, females out there. They're finished school, they're looking for jobs, intelligent. How do we harness them to come in helping us in issues of agribusiness? The other day I was talking to a youth who has just finished agribusiness, looking for a job. I said, don't look for a job, employ yourself. And this is what you can do. So a lot of these youth just need mentoring. But when it comes to the female of the youth, you have to go beyond mentoring. You have to mentor and coach to make sure that they have the confidence. Because where they're going is not going to be easy. They're going to fight and fight. You know, so that now when they are able to do this, and we know that smallholder farmers produce 60% of the crops, and our farming systems are smallholder based, there are very few medium or large scale. How do we get these smallholders? And remember, the majority, 70% of the people doing the farming are women. We now have farmer groups, we have community interest groups coming together. There's been a lot of emphasis on those group dynamics to be able to give women more confidence and a voice. How do we ensure that all projects that governments do in whichever country in sub-Saharan Africa or Africa ensure that a certain percent of that money, 20%, should go on capacity building, and they have to show evidence of who they trained by putting phone numbers, ID numbers, and then it allows somebody doing monitoring to really reach a farmer. Because now we have digital, our phones can tell us where we are, the GIS, the GPS codes. They can tell us where we are. We know where the women are, where they've been trained, so that we can make a big difference. When we're talking in terms of agribusiness, how much food is there? How much food do we have? When we're talking about agribusiness and you're selling maize, where is the maize? In Cairo, we have crop suitability maps. So we'll show you a map showing where maize grows best in Kenya, where guavas grow best in Kenya, where mangoes grow, where sorghum grows best. Those maps are there. They are called crop suitability maps. But what I'm asking, where is the market suitability map? Where is it? After I grow this, where? You don't expect, if women knew or agriculture extensionists knew that there's a map I can go to, and when you click, it takes you down to the contact of where you need to sell, then what are we talking about? In Cairo, we want to make a marketplace like what you see in Smart Harvest or Seeds of Gold, where farmers can go and sell and the rest. But how many of them are reading newspapers? How many newspapers are actually produced every day? What fodder do we need to use so that the farmers have access to market information? When you're talking agribusiness, it's all about markets. I'm now asking the market people, the economists, where are the markets? Draw me a market suitability map and shock me. I know we have Business Daily, it tells you how much the different crops are costing. How much? We know as agriculturists that in an acre of maize you have 12.3 million calories. I know in an acre of jackfruit is 38.4. We have that kind of statistics, calories, leave alone the yield. But now where do we market? Where is the map of value addition? When you grow maize, people hate maize, but I'll talk about it because we understand it. We call it food security. When you grow maize, you always have to eat it fresh. Do you always have to eat it roasted? In Kenya, where is the statistics showing how much maize oil we make, or corn oil as people call it, value adding? When we value add, even the husks that come out from the maize, they can make a product. Even the cobs can make a product. When are we going to value add this to create business opportunities to allow women to be more involved in the crop value chains? Those are the things I'm asking. This is not just Calro. The universities, they have all this information. So many theses that have been developed. We just need to harness. We don't need to invent the wheel. They're there. We just need to optimize the technology that is there and make sure that it gets to the end user. Take that technology, and that's what we're doing now in the Kenya Climate Smart Project, is taking these technologies with our partners, and we thank the Ministry of Agriculture, we thank KEFIS, where we take these technologies and get them to the end user. Practical technologies. When we did the sorghum value chain, where we're educating not only lead farmers, but extensionists, we even showed them that there are 30 products from sorghum. Banana, one of the products was banana tea from the banana peel. Those are the things that need to happen. We've changed the way we do business as Calro. We've made it real so that we can show opportunities for different gender that can come in and set up businesses, agribusinesses, to improve the value chain of particular crops to minimize losses. And this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about this, we're also showing the importance of nutrition. When people know that sorghum is quite nutritious, or you can even make sorghum pilau, it's not just rice pilau, then they wake up. To be able to do this, we actually launched the first Kenya Food Composition Tables in September 2018. It was launched by the CS Mwangi Kinjuri. And at the same time, we also launched a book on recipes, showing how we cook our foods different ways. When you cook them, at the end, what is the nutrition? Kenyans need to know what they're eating, so that when you're eating, you now know you're healthy. So these women in agribusiness, the ones that will venture the issues of value addition or processing, when they're processing or making these foods, they need to include nutrition. Exactly what are you eating? So there are very, 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 very many opportunities for agribusiness for women. But you can say, for some of the crops that are always there, the market is flooded. But in Kenya, we grow both tropical and temperate fruits. We have not done very well when it comes in terms of the underutilized fruits. The guavas, the gooseberries, the loquats. What happened to those? They're produced, like in another 2 months we'll have a lot of guava. Nobody will even know what happens to them. It'll be children eating them during the holidays and birds. Why are we not making guava juice? We're importing guava concentrate from Uganda. It's not to say we stop. There's nothing wrong with that. But Kenya, why are you not making guava juice or even guava powder that is so healthy? You can take it as a tea or as a vegetable. There are all these unique opportunities. And go to Calro, Google Play Store, the mobile applications. There are some of these apps, they're going to be revised. Then you'll be able to get this information, what you can do. And if there's anything missing, contact us. And we'll give you what you need within a week. And then you'll have it online, because we're changing. the way we do business. We used to focus on increased yield. So the farmers were growing this high yielding maize, but they were losing everything. So how do we now ensure they grow the high yielding, high zinc beans? How? Imagine beans. They are so healthy for us. We eat them because it's food, but we don't know what we're eating. And then for women with the issues of fuel, where you have the pre-cooked beans so that you cook your beans in 15 minutes, those are the kind of innovations we're talking about. And for many of these crops, how do we then value add them to increase the business opportunity for women in the issues of agribusiness? How do we use the information we have to promote cultivation, promote consumption, to allow the farmers to grow drought-tolerant crops? Like now, a new one that will be coming very soon is teff, for fodder for cows, for those people who are interested in dairy or beef, where this teff, in 45 days with one rain, you are getting grain. And there are many opportunities like that. Then you can use the straw, like they use rice straw as animal feeds now, instead of burning it in the rice production places. How do we create awareness to women in terms of business as to those climate smart opportunities that work well for them? How do we allow them to come in, and then when they create these businesses, we're able to create a market? My mom, any technology I give her, she asks me, soko iko wapi? Where is the market? Where is it? I tried to tell my mom, you can't keep growing maize all the time. Try finger millet. So last year I gave her finger millet. She planted 3 acres. She said, I am no longer growing maize. It's not finger millet. I told her, no, you can rotate. But she knows about crop rotation. So she said, I planted finger millet here, now I'll plant it somewhere else. Those are the things. Imagine when you teach a farmer to do and you show them, that's when it enters here. And then they see, grow, and experience the difference. It's food on the table and money in the pocket. Then you change them. That is what we've not been doing, the issues of agribusiness. We come and tell them, just grow finger millet, but you have not shown them. But just let the farmer grow, go through it in a season, and you have changed them for life. And there are many of these crops that we can grow that can make a big difference in our agricultural system, that can contribute a lot to agribusiness. And many of these crops that we're trying to promote, the sorghum, the millets, finger millet, pearl millet, portion millet, foxtail millet, there are many. Green grams, the pigeon peas, they tend to be women crops. They are women crops because they're not associated with money. But imagine, they're the ones creeping. They're now the money makers. So how do we make it easy for women to grow them, women to thresh them, women to reach the market? That's what we're talking about here. How do we have the farmers shift from commodities that they produce to ensure that those commodities get to markets? How can CalRO and the universities work together to generate and promote technologies and innovations for demand-driven priority value chains? You know, in Kenya, we have about 423 crops, but the government doesn't have money to fund everything. But those that are priority or an area where there's a constraint, how do we fund that to make a big difference? What kind of storage structures should we build to make a difference, to minimize losses? How do we empower women and smallholder farmers to reduce the transaction costs of when they produce and when they sell? You've seen some videos today where a woman said, I didn't even have a donkey. When she doesn't have a donkey, the woman becomes a donkey. You know, how can she have transportation of moving whatever she produces from where she has grown it to where she can be able to store it until she gets to the market? We must increase product diversification and also diversify what we grow in our farming system. That will reduce the losses. But when we're doing this, we're also showing the farmers, soko yuko wapi, where is the market? Because that's what makes a big difference. When you're growing the root and tuber crops, the cassavas, the sweet potato, the Irish potato, then what? For the longest time, we got our potatoes fresh. But now that you go to supermarkets and you see those pre-processed potatoes made in Kenya, forget the imported ones. That means we're going the right direction. When we're able to deploy these technologies, new technologies, what we're also targeting is to attract the youth into agriculture. That is very important. So we need to create these knowledge banks and information